Okay, we're on. So, David, you've got a new book coming out that I have yet to be able to track down a galley of, but it's going to happen before this weekend.
They're floating around.
I know. I'm sure there'll be some on tables tonight, and I'm going to get James Rollins to steal me a copy because
and to sign it for me.
Yeah, I'll get Jimbo to sign it for you. Are you going to be in the banquet tonight?
I will not.
You will not.
My policy is I never go to banquets unless I'm nominated for something.
Well,
and then only reluctantly.
Yes, well, that is a good policy. I am not going to be in the banquet this year, so that's why I have to get my only friend that's going to be there to steal a copy of your book for me. But he's very dependable that way. So we haven't had a chance to talk about this much. But tell me about this new book.
Well, this new book is a little bit of a departure for me. Like most of my other books, it's historical fiction and deals with an economic issue. In this case, it's about the Luddite Uprising, which was the first organized labor protest to the Industrial Revolution, against the Industrial Revolution. That's where we get the term Luddite from. But it also has elements of the supernatural. The characters in this novel practice both traditional folk magic and magic from the Western Hermetic tradition in the way that people who historically practiced magic did and believed it worked. So it's not Harry Potter where people are shooting sparks from wands. They're performing ritual magic the way people actually historically did perform ritual magic, only in this novel this stuff kind of works.
Okay, that sounded really academic, and I understood about a third of it.
There are big things that move.
Exactly. You gotta use very small words when you're talking to me.
Okie dokie.
But this is like a pretty major departure for you. I mean, is this because, I don't know, suddenly you're writing comic books and now you're going to write about fantastic elements in what have been to date some pretty serious historical fiction novels?
Well, you know, I've always believed fairly strongly in writing the book that I want to write.
Yeah, that's cool.
And sometimes that annoys my editor, I think. But you know, I like what I do, and I want to enjoy what I'm writing and not write because it's what, you know, somebody has predicted the marketplace wants. Because many times those predictions are wrong, and how awful to spend a year and a half writing something you don't want to be writing and then not have it sell. So I may as well just write what I want to do. I grew up reading all kinds of things. I grew up reading historical fiction, but I also grew up reading a lot of horror and supernatural fiction. I've always enjoyed different genres, and one of the other elements of this book is that it's very much in conversation with Jane Austen, who's an author I love, and I'm a huge Jane Austen fan.
Me too.
And I think she is among the 2 or 3 single most important shapers of the novel. And for a long time I wanted to do something that was in some way in communication with Austen. And so the main character in this novel comes from a family that has a lot in common with the main family in Pride and Prejudice. And one of the characters is Mary Crawford, who comes directly from the novel Mansfield Park.
Oh, very cool.
Who's a character I've always found fascinating, and I've always had a little bit of a crush on because she's such a kind of a fascinating bad girl, and is also the sort of evil twin of Elizabeth Bennet. She's like Elizabeth Bennet gone bad. And so I wanted to do something that would incorporate all these elements, and something where I could write in a kind of Austen-esque voice and write Austen-esque characters.
Wow.
And I wanted to do something supernatural.
You have totally sold me this novel.
But I'm also, like, the economic issues are really always foremost on my mind. And what I wanted to do was address a lot of, when you read Jane Austen, in most of her novels, you know, the Napoleonic Wars are going on. England is going through this incredible economic depression. There have been multiple bad harvests. There's labor unrest. The country is people are terrified that they're on the verge of a revolution like the French Revolution. It's this real moment of social and economic unease, but it never permeates.
Well, actually, it's funny because you're talking about Jane Austen in an economy, and, you know, I would think it's a huge issue because of more like domestic economy, you know, home economy. How am I going to run this house? Right. How are we going to live?
But very rarely, and it's one of the things I like about Mansfield Park, it's one of the reasons why, and it's not the most page-turning of her novels, but it is the one novel that I think really engages with deprivation and hardship in a serious way. But for the most part in Austen, you don't see those things. You don't see...
I don't know, I sort of feel like all those women were, you know, trying to get married.
They are trying to get married, but it's all... narrow domestic sphere stuff. It's
yeah,
not,
but that's what I mean. That's what that's very economic to me, but it's on a scale
right,
that
it's
I could
macro.
relate to, yeah.
And so I wanted to bring some of the macro elements, some of the stuff that's happening off stage in those domestic novels into what I was writing.
Cool.
And so you have a novel that's set in this moment that is very liminal, that there's political change that's in the works, and there's real social change. The Industrial Revolution is coming in and completely changing the way people can, live. The novel set in Nottinghamshire, which was the center of stocking weaving. And for generations, people had made their living making stockings, and Nottinghamshire stockings were the standard. And then suddenly these factories, what they call mills, are being constructed, in which unskilled labor is working these machines that make poor quality stockings that don't last, that rip after a wear or two, but are sold super cheap. And suddenly, a way of life that has been sustained for generations is gone. Men can no longer make a living, can no longer support their families as stocking weavers, and there's no other labor for them. So people are quite literally starving. There are food riots, and meanwhile women and children and the elderly are working, like 14, 16-hour days for with barely a living wage. So all this is happening when people are walking outside their doors and witnessing a way of life completely shifting. And that was something I wanted to address.
You don't take a fluffy approach to novels. I mean, you're not going to write that Harry Potter. In fact, yesterday or something I said, is this novel going to be Lev Grossman-esque? And you're like, And now I can see why, This isn't the light Harry Potter Goes to College.
Well, I actually thought Lev Grossman's novel was interesting.
No, I
in
totally
many
dug
ways,
it.
because it wasn't light and fluffy. And what I really appreciated about that book was he wanted to really grapple with what Harry Potter novels don't, which is if this stuff were real, what does it mean psychologically? What does it do to the human psyche to be able to perform these incredible things?
Yeah.
And to have a world that is both magical and normal coexisting. And so I thought that was very compelling.
It was. I mean, I told you I was a huge fan of that novel, but listening to you talk, I can certainly see how your book is, definitely not that book. And honestly, this book you're describing is not any book that I've read in the recent past. And I love the complexity of your novels. I think they're smart and interesting.
Well, thank you.
Sorry,
but I would also want to emphasize for your millions of viewers that,
yes.
what I want. I write about things that require a lot of research and that are the complex historical events. But what I want to do is tell a compelling story about interesting characters, and that's always foremost on my mind. The main character in this novel is a 21-year-old woman who's in many ways based on the youngest sister from Pride and Prejudice. She's kind of a type of Lydia.
Okay.
And she's about to enter into her family has fallen apart. Her father is dead. One of her sisters is dead, and one has been married off. She's living with a relative who doesn't want her, and she's about to marry the local mill owner, the stocking mill owner, who she doesn't especially like, but anything's better than living with her uncle. And as she is sitting in the parlor forming her marriage plans with this man she doesn't really want to marry, but she can't see any other way out of her life, there's a knock on the door, and this incredibly good-looking man she's never seen is there, and says, "Don't marry him," and then collapses. And this man turns out to be Lord Byron. Okay,
well, interesting. I'm going to keep this under 10 minutes so we can put it up on YouTube. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have?
I don't think so. You've been so comprehensive.
Well, I try. I was thinking about you early this morning when I couldn't sleep. And yeah, I know. I think of you when I'm lying in bed, David. Sorry.
This cannot go on YouTube. This has got to be edited out.
And no, honestly, I was sitting there with my Kindle next to me, and I went on Amazon, and I saw the blurb from Deborah Harkness, and I thought, well, that ain't too bad.
No, we were obviously very happy when that came in.
Yeah,
so I hope that gives me magic cred.
I think you've got the cred. I think some people are going to check this out.
Well, it's a new kind of thing for me. I hope old readers will give it a try, and we'll get some new readers. I think Random House has done a fantastic job with the cover. It's a great looking book. And that's what I have to say.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.